Shouts out to iPack Arts out there on Instagram for the thumbnails. Thank you, iPack Arts. Check, 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 check. Check, check. Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang. Check, check, mic check. What's up, y'all? Let's go. Tonight we're covering Space Lizard films. We're doing we're gonna cover Space Lizards in the movies. What are we doing? Enemy Mine, Alien Nation, The Last Starfighter. We're gonna talk a little bit about Flight of the Navigator, and what's the other one we're doing? Enemy. Did I mention Enemy Mine? I don't know. We're doing a bunch of movies with star lizards. And you got to know the secret star lizard hand sign, right? Which is you flash a couple signs, and then you know, do a quick sign, and then they'll know you. Okay. And I got that actually from there's a guy, there's a comedian, Dan Cummins, who has a podcast. And I went to see him live with my friend here, and he had this bit about space lizards. And I went with my buddy, and we were walking out. I said, check this out," because he was in the lobby, and I said, "Check this out, yo." And I flashed him a secret, the secret space lizard sign, and he did it right back to me. My friend goes, "What is that, dude?" And I was like, "Man, come on, it's a space lizard sign, dude. If you know, you know." So tonight we're covering the DI space lizard cheetah uri. And where should we start? This one's just gonna be lightweight, light material. Okay. We're not doing literature tonight because I'm on my final week of spring break here. And we're gonna get back to the serious literature. Shouts out to David Patrick Harry at Church of the Eternal Logos, our friend Coteasy out there, because we had a fun time last night doing the Based Mel movie, and that was cool. Of course, it got popped because of the opening music and all that stuff. So, but it's still up on his Rockfin. So go to Church of the Eternal Logos Rockfin because you can still see it there. That was a good time. Good times. Always good times with David Patrick Harry, who is a good friend and does the best content. Love him, and we're gonna keep going and doing monthly movies. So that's gonna be fun. So I thought sticking with the movie theme, this one's been kind of brewing for a little while. So I thought I would do this one. And mainly it's going to center on The Last Starfighter and Enemy Mine. And so there's this trope in the 80s. Maybe y'all have seen these movies. Maybe you haven't. I don't know. But, if you were a '80s baby like me, 1980, then you've seen these. I actually had one of those. Do you remember those Viewmaster things? It was like an '80s toy. It's like a red, like, has 2 things you put up to your face, and you, like, click the thing. There's a wheel in it with, like, it's got 3D pictures in it, and the only one that I had was the last Starfighter for some reason. And the movie came out in 1984, and so but it sticks with this theme. So, we're gonna talk about that. Then we're gonna get into Enemy Mine. Enemy Mine is, an underrated film. It's a heavy draw it's actually a heavy drama, and it's another '80s, mid-'80s movie, and the themes in it are pretty complex, but it's gonna deal with, um, it well, the the lizard theme, is obviously heavy because that's what the characters are, and it's about 2 pilots, 2 soldiers stuck on a alien planet, and they have both crashed because of a battle. They're enemies, and so it's mine enemy, right? But there's a mine on the planet, so it's a kind of a triple pun actually. Um, there's a mine on the planet, and so the space lizards become enslaved, and they have to work in the thing. And anyway, so but we're going to talk about what that is and how it's sort of, I guess, predictive programming. It's an '80s trope. We could just analyze these just on the surface for what they are, but there's always subtext involved in the movie. So we're gonna get into those. Also Alien Nation, which I watched today for the first time. It's a 1988 film. I watched it for the first time since probably 1989. I saw it. I remember watching it the first time. I watched it at home on the television. And, like, on a Saturday night, because in the '80s, you had, like, 4 channels, right? And you had the little dial thing, and and I remember it came on, and the movie really it scared me. I didn't like the look of it. I didn't like how the aliens look and how they were, like, normal in the world. And I think they premiered it because they were making that TV show, V, which also scared me. I didn't like that. I didn't like any of this kinda stuff. I did like The Last Starfighter because, I was like 4, and because it's kind of a Star Wars. It's obviously kind of a Star Wars takeoff. Flight of the Navigator I loved, because I was, like, 6 when I saw it, and it came out like, Disney used to have, a once a week thing. I guess it would be on ABC. It was on Channel 8 here. That's all I know. And it was the Saturday or Sunday night movie, and it came on, and I remember Michael Eisner introducing it because I just seen we used to watch that, like, as a family because we watched Swiss Family Robinson, and he introduced it, and, like, he was on this beach, and then he introduced Flight of the Navigator, and I thought it was so cool because, it's a kid, and he goes into this place, they give him, like, a NASA hat, and, like, I thought that was cool, and he gets in a spaceship, and he rides around, and also the voice of the spaceship is Pee Wee Herman, but it's before Pee Wee Herman. So I thought that was really cool. Now looking back on it, that movie is incredibly dark. There's a lot of dark symbolism in the movie, that you wouldn't get as a kid. But, we're gonna try and stay as safe as we can talking about that film. What are the other films we're gonna do? We're gonna do oh yeah, Rakka, which is Neill Blomkamp, who, directed District 9 and Chappie. Who's a and Elysium. Elysium, I think, is a great film. It's technocratic empire going on a pentagram ship above the burning earth, right? While everybody else lives in the industrial wage cities, until what's his name, Matt Damon gets body mods and has to fight an MK Delta for supremacy, while Jodie Foster rules the committee up on the pod city floating above the sky with the transhumanists. And so anyway, this is a short film that's on like Netflix, I guess. And it's part of this weird thing called Oats Studios. You probably totally passed it by, but it's worth a watch because it's like 10 short films, and this is the first one, and it's got Sigourney Weaver in it. So it's, Alien kind of plays into it a little bit, but so we'll get into that. And that one's not '80s, but we'll dive into that. So where should we start? Should we start with The Last Starfighter? So shouts out to everybody out there. Thank you for being here. Please smash that like, share the stream, and all the links are in the video description if you wanna, support me. Really appreciate y'all. So The Last Starfighter is 1984, and, it stars this guy, Lance Guest, and this guy is kinda it's funny because, he's playing you can't really tell if he's a teenager or, like, he's in his early 20s or whatever in the movie. He's, like, 25 when he filmed it. But he's it's kind of I mean, he's a mouth breather. He's got his mouth open. He's got his mouth open the whole movie, and he's got that kind of you remember that guy Will Young? Will who won Pop Idol? Like, I guess maybe he won the first I don't know. I was abroad when he won Pop Idol, but he's got that lip, right, where it's kinda sticking out like that. Whatever, I'm not criticizing. I'm just noticing things about the movie. So anyway, those are some noticeable things. But he actually he actually is a pretty, good actor because his parts as the character his name in the movie is Alex Rogan, which is so I got my AJ shirt on for the space uh, quintuplet of movies or whatever that we're doing tonight. But you can just imagine, I watched that movie when I was 10 years old. He was a good, who knows that I would find this other guy named Rogan. So so his name is Alex Rogan, and he lives in a podunk trailer park in, I guess, California. And so it's the hero's journey, right? He goes from it's interesting because it's like a classical comedy in the sense that it could turn out very badly. It could be the tragic elements could, happen really easily, but it all goes right because, it's a kid's movie and he saves the universe. Spoiler alert, he saves the universe. You know he's gonna do that. But he's a gamer. So so he's got nothing going on, but he does have a girlfriend and, I don't think we really see his parents, but he's got a little brother and he's got these bunk beds or whatever. But he's got, nothing going on, and he's got his flannel shirt on, and at night, he goes outside, and there's one arcade game, like, in the trailer park, and the arcade game is, Starfighter, which is you can see it right here with these guys playing it. Hold on. Let me see if I can find this. With these dudes playing and I guess this was a real I don't know if I guess it was a real arcade. I mean, this looks like a real picture, but you got this guy right here who kinda on the left here, who he looks kinda like a I mean, this guy's a nerd, but he looks kinda cool. I mean, I don't know what his face he kinda looks like the young, Stephen Kang or something like that. That's not cool, but he looks kinda cool. He's just hanging out with his homeboy over here. They're playing Starfighter or whatever at the arcade. I mean, that's pretty cool, so it reminds me of, like, Afterburner, right? You remember that video game Afterburner? Any video games in the '80s, like, when you were a kid or in the early '90s before this is, like, sort of post Nintendo, this is Atari time, um, and sort of, pre-Sega Genesis, I guess, and, um, and the arcade games that were cool were the ones with, that were like, you could pilot a plane or whatever 'cause it felt like you were in the plane when you were a little kid, or, like, with a wheel, like there used to be when you're a kid and you have, like, birthday parties at the roller skating rink? And so we would that was cool, we'd go to Golden Skate World, and I remember there was this girl, she was, like, a professional skater, I was, like, 8. She was my age, and her name was, like, Gwen or something, she was a professional roller skater, I thought that was cool. Um, but you would do these moves around the roller skating rink when you're a little kid, and you go in, you have your little party, your birthday party or whatever there, and then you would, like, skate from the rink up onto the carpet, and you go over to where the arcade was, and they had, Rad Racer there, and I'd play Rad Racer, you go get your quarters, and you had Rad Racer, and, like, you had to press on the pedals with your roller skate, that was real hard. Um, but but anyway, so Starfighter is, like, one of those games, and the dude is really good. He's like the best gamer in the world, right? And he's playing his Starfighter. And what's funny is like he's getting up there. It's at nighttime, and it's called the he lives in the Starbright Mobile Home Park, right? And there's this one guy, and he's like, "Gee," he's like, "Dang, Alex, "You about to beat the game. Hey, everybody, come on. Alex gonna beat the game." And he calls them over there, and there's all these, like, you know, old people over there sitting there playing dominoes and bridge and whatever, and they go, "Alex is gonna beat the game." And they call everybody from the trailer park, and they all come run over, and they watch Alex play the game. Now, on the one hand, this is totally cheesy, this is, like, lame. There's nothing to do in this damn trailer park except watch this goober play Starfighter and beat the game. But on the other hand, it's kinda, I mean, it's wholesome. It's like, it's a community. They're supporting their boy, and he's good at something. He's got his little skill. He's got a girlfriend, so good for him. So they go and they watch him, and when he wins, he's like high-fiving all the grandmothers and stuff. And you're like, "Okay, well, good for you." But that's not what happened. That's not the end of what happens, right? He's not just a gamer. This is like the beginning of, like, gamers being real heroes, right? So we it's funny because, we know that intelligence and Pentagon used video games as a training, right? And then you turn into virtual reality, you have war games, and then now it's like, you hire the kid who's good at, I don't know, Call of Duty or whatever to pilot drones in real life, and they go to the place in Nevada and they pilot drones and all that stuff. This is like real primitive, right? They were using, remember those tank games they used, and they used vector technology, and they kind of piloted it with they piloted the program like with video games, and then they got into the military and all that stuff. And of course, we've talked before, I think here, about that game Polybius. You remember the thing about that game? I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know if that's a real thing or not. But the thing with Polybius, that video might still be out. That was a great classic, kind of conspiracy video about Polybius and was it Polybius, Game Theory, John Nash, and MK Ultra. And it's about how there was this game called Polybius, which is, I guess, one of those tank vector games. It's a war game, and and the thing was, every night the men in black would come in and they would take the game away. Right, it was the legend, and they would upload the data from the game so they could use it in their war game predictions and understand it. And so they were piloting it with kids who knew how to play the game, and I don't know, something like that. So that's pretty interesting if you know about that. I guess if you know, you know, right? Polybius is a cool name for a game, by the way. I think. So anyway, so everybody's kind of walking away or whatever, and then he hears the video game speaking to him, and it's like, Alex, Alex, uh, we need you, Starfighter. And then what do you know? Like, you see a shooting star, and this DeLorean station wagon pulls up. This is interesting because it's clearly the station wagon is a space mobile, but it's a station wagon and it's an electric car because it doesn't have an engine. It's making like a high pitched, whooshing sound. It kind of drives up real fast, and it has gull wing doors, and it's supposed to be, clearly it's based on a DeLorean, but this is pre Back to the Future. Back to the Future is 85. This is 84, so it's whatever. So, and then this, smartly dressed old fella, this old timer gets out, and he says that his name is Centauri. And this dude, it's Robert Preston, who's the actor. This dude he's got like the best voice you've ever heard. I think he died just a few years after that, and he sounds smoky. Um, and he gets out, and I mean, this guy has the best classic Hollywood, and radio voice. And I think it's either him or the actual Space Lizard who played a heavy in, early westerns and stuff. I don't know which one it is. It's one of those 2 guys. But he's got his trilby on, his fedora, and his three-piece suit, and he's like, "Hey, I'm from another world. I'm from outer space, and I'm gonna take you away because, you won the game. So I've been looking. I planted this game here on Earth, so that I could find somebody who would be a starfighter. And you're it. You're the starfighter. So come with me. I got something to show you." So he gets in the station wagon, and he takes, excuse me, and he takes off, and they go up into space. And then I don't know, they go through their star portal or whatever in their wormhole, and they end up on their little asteroid planet, and they fly into the planet, and it's got the caves and the underground caves in the asteroid. and, it's basically like it's like the good Death Star, or like he's there, to see Admiral Akbar, right? So he walks in, it's like this fully functional space station with these humans, and it's like humans with, weird, like, donut head wigs. They're like they're great. They I guess they're kind of meant to mimic, a Roman laurel, because they go around, they kind of meet at the front. It's very, very campy. But there's also a bunch of, odd shaped, humanoid and reptilian creatures there that are also gonna, go up to be starfighters, including a Cthulhu. And Alex walks in and he steps on the Cthulhu's foot, and the guy stands up and gets mad at him. But, Mr. Oldtimer or whatever, this other old timer, he's the head of the space division, and he's like, "Look, we're facing extinction, and, we gotta fight the bad guys." Well, who's gonna be the bad guy? Well, of course, because it's Star Wars, it's his son. His son has gone rogue. His son has the same haircut and has an English accent, even though he's a father has an American accent, and he comes on as a holographic disembodied head that floats in the middle of the thing. Very Star Trek, Star Wars, obviously. But it's interesting that the disembodied head element, because we've talked about that before, and we've read and heard about that, and we saw that in the Northman movie. We see the esoteric elements of the disembodied head. So it's kind of like this guy is some sort of star god out there somewhere, and he is rebelling, right? He's rebelling against his dad. Um, and he's on the other side from Vader. It's kind of a flip, right? But he's like, "Look, I'm going to take over." And then the old man says, "Well, you don't have anything to bargain with." And he's like, "Oh yes, what about your master spy?" And they've caught the master spy, and they cut to, two of the humanoid alien people have the spy in a chair. They got him in old Sparky, and they're gonna eliminate him right in front of everybody. This is pretty heavy stuff for a kids movie. And they shoot a beam, and they melt his brain. They shoot a beam right into the old uh PI gland, right? And they melt his brain, and they like suck the energy from him or whatever. And he says, "Yeah, I got the scepter now." Okay. So the scepter is this is also a weird trope in the 80s, like the powerful scepter. This was also in another 1984 movie. Was it 1984? Yeah, it was. It was the Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren. You remember the scepter that they find? The whole movie is about Skeletor has to find the synth scepter, and Courtney Cox, like, finds it in a pawn shop or something like that. It's basically like a Synclavier, synth mixed with a Yamaha, and it shoots out laser beams, which is, like, totally cool for the '80s, right? But Skeletor wants it. Well, anyway, that's what the guy kinda has, but it has, like, little spikes in it, and he's like, "I got the scepter." There's no lasers coming out of it, it's just like a big axe thing. And there are these, reptilioids there, and I thought this part was cool because I remember there was a toy when I was, like, 4, and they had a Star Wars helmet, and then they had, like, a Last Starfighter helmet, and I thought the Last Starfighter helmet was cooler because, like, it had this the guy's like, the guy in charge of the military, he's this reptilioid, and he's like, "Shh," and it's like this orange glass that goes over one eye, so it's, illuminate confirmed, but it goes over one eye, and then it kind of flips back. I thought that was so cool when I was a kid. Like, "Oh, man, you got this, like, optic thing?" I was, like, so radical. Anyway, the bad son or whatever, it cuts to their space station out there, and he walks away, and the 2 reptilioids are standing there, and they're like, "Look, how long do we have to deal with this guy? The Cheetah Uri shouldn't have to deal with this human." And they're like, "Well, he's in control right now. Don't worry, we'll have our time." So we know there's gonna be a kind of a mutiny on board the bad guy ship, right? And he gets taken away, walks between the 2. It's almost like the 2 red guardians, that guard the emperor, but he goes off of his little catwalk space walk and disappears behind the pneumatic door. Lots of pneumatic doors I've been seeing in movies recently. This happened in Flight of the Navigator too. It also weirdly happened in that movie Patton. They had pneumatic like doors, like they shut like on when they were showing Yodel and the OKW. Whereas, Patton had the everything was kinda analog, so I don't know, whatever. So he goes away, and they're like, basically like, you gotta train as a starfighter. Well, Rogan, he don't wanna he don't wanna deal with this. He's too much of a goober, to wanna deal with, being a starfighter for real, even though they're gonna train him up there on the space station, right? And he's like, "Look, I gotta get back home." So he's gotta get back home. And this, the main, star lizard comes out, and he's like, he's this guy's like full on star lizard. Okay, let me see if I can find the picture of him. This guy's like, he's the pilot. He's gonna train him. And yeah, here's the guy. And he says, like, look, Alex, we're gonna train you. Yeah, you can't really see it in the picture, but he has got a full on Dianetics Scientology emblem on his head right there in a bullseye, and his little, eight-wheeled things or whatever on the side of his helmet. It's clearly also supposed to be like the rebel empire, right? Um, and also the emblem of the Starfighter good guys is clearly an Atari emblem. And I mean, it's the Atari emblem I know comes from there's a Japanese character it comes from. It also kinda looks like, there's a rune, the peace sign. The peace sign is based on a rune. Did you know that? It's the peace sign is a Germanic rune, but, but then you take away the little bottom staff, and it's kind of obviously supposed to be they use it because the symbolism of the archetypal symbolism of the Trinity. So that puts them off as the good guys. Well, anyway, so the reptilioid is like, what? You want me to train you? And he's like, no, I got to get back home. So they decide to get Alex back on Centauri, because he's got the carriage, right? Because he's the transporter from Earth, so he's got the carriage. So he's like a centaur. He's like half man, half horse, I guess. I don't know. And also, the star system. And, so anyway, he gets back he's like, "Go on, get back in the DeLorean station wagon. I'll take you back home, fine." So they go all the way back home. This is a weird plot line. So they take him all the way back home. When he gets back home, he's like, "Who are you?" And he meets Alex, and Alex meets Alex. He meets himself. Now, we could take this and say that this is some weird sort of dissociation. He's meeting himself back on Earth, and the guy, the robo version of him, because it's a robot who replaces him while he's gone. So it's kind of clever because they're like, well, Alex is gone, and the people on Earth can't miss him because then they'll know something's happening, right? So they get a beta version of him who's a robot to take his place. And the guy says, "I'm Beta." And you're like, "Okay, all right, clearly." Um, so that's a robot that they put there. Well, anyway, when this happens, he's taking his place or whatever, but Alex is like, "I'm gonna stay here." And then all of a sudden we see a star fall. We see another, Luciferian star fall to Earth, and we see this weird crabby man gelatinoid chunk come out, and he's a regular dude. He's a regular human, but it's just a disguise, and he's a bad guy, and he's been sent to assassinate Alex because the bad guys know that he's back on Earth, right? Well, he comes out and he starts shooting at Alex, and Alex hides under the wheel of one of the trailers like a little, well, and he's not ready to fight. And he calls for Centauri. Centauri comes out. He arrives just in time. And then it's weird. He like gets out of the little DeLorean wagon, and he's got his little phaser, and he's like, "Watch out, Centauri!" And he's like, "Oh, pew pew!" And you're like, the dude pulled up. He didn't know there was a phaser battle going on. It's really weird. And Alex, you're expecting Alex to get out and save the guy, but he doesn't. So anyway, the Centauri shoots the crabby man, and he falls to the ground. And then, they're talking, and he's like, "You gotta get back with us, and, you gotta save the world." And this always happens in these, space lizard movies or in the alien movies, because it's always either the Watchers are up there in the other dimension, right? And the Watchers are watching Earth, and they don't like what we're doing here, and they, panspermed the planet, and they don't like their creation, so they have to intervene. Or there's something going on the other world, and if the Earthlings don't help the aliens save themselves from the bad aliens, then later on they're gonna come and they're gonna destroy the Earth, right? That's always the way it is. That actually happens in, like, all of the rest of the movies that we're gonna watch that we're gonna talk about tonight. So yeah, and it does. It predicts video games being used by MIC to train conditioned soldiers, for Call of Duty. Absolutely, yep, just discussed. And so he's like, "All right, well, what you're saying I have to save the world?" And he's got his open mouth, and you're like, "Man, you gotta catch flies. Shut your mouth." So he goes up there and he's like, "All right, well," and Beta says, "Good luck, Alex." And he says, "You too, Alex." So Beta's back on Earth, right? They have to keep him on Earth because the bad guys have to think that Alex, the last Starfighter, is still on the Earth because they can't know he's in space. They got their shields set up, but see, right before they're about to get in the DeLorean wagon, the Mr. Crabinoid shoots his phaser blaster one last time, and he gets Centauri. Oh, I've been hit. He gets Centauri, and then he still proceeds to drive Alex. You think Alex would take the wheel of this damn thing, and and whatever. And the guy's like, they get through the Stargate or whatever. They get into their asteroid planet. They crash the wagon in. Nobody comes to help him. He's like, "Help, help, Centauri's dying." Nobody comes to help. It's really weird. Finally, Mr. Lizard Man comes and he's like, You made it, Centauri." And Centauri is he's been doing this apparently for space bucks. Okay, he's some kind of gambler. Now you can tell why he's wearing the three-piece suit. He's kind of like some sort of Dutch Schultz bot or whatever, and he wants the money. And he says, it's great to save the world, but it's also good to have some money. He says, and then he dies. He dies, and then Mister Captain Lizardoid says to him, "I'll see you in the next dimension." So it's dimensions, right? They are aliens from another dimension, right? They're basically space aliens, right? Remember Alex? So 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 Centauri dies. It's terrible. And so then Mr. Captain Star Lizard is going to train Alex, and he gets up into their Gundam wing. What is a Gundam wing? Gundam wing? What is that? I don't know what that is, but I used to see that word all the time. It's some kind of Japanese transformer GoBot or some shit. I don't know what that is. But that's what the thing is to me. It looks like what I would imagine a Gundam wing is. It, it's this thing. And I remember I had an X-wing toy when I was 4. I never had one of those things. It looks kind of like it would be kind of cool back then. I don't know. And you see, it's got the little Stargate, right? We got these emerald light Stargates. We talked about emerald and the symbolism of the emerald color dealing with evil. We always see that with the evil guy in whatever book we're talking about, right? The emerald light. They even talk about that in Parzival, and Wolfram von Eskimok's Parzival. So, but you can tell that they spent the whole budget in this on the set, first of all, of the space station because it's actually pretty well done, and on the computer graphics. And I'm amazed 'cause these are clearly like, they are using models, but they're also clearly using, like, really weird, crude, Amiga computer space graphics on this thing, and, they look pretty cool. I mean, it's amazing how, like, you watch a movie like this, and they were cool at the time, and then for a while, they were probably like, "Oh, that's so dated, and that's shit." And then you see CGI for years, right, where everything is ultra realistic, and you get tired of that, and now you go back to this, and you're like, that's actually, like, even cooler. Maybe it's just the vaporwave that I like or something about it. It's got the, like, hypercolor blue in there. That's pretty cool. Anyway, whatever. I'm really rambling about this movie. So anyway, he gets trained in this thing, and the, Captain Space Lizard says to him, this guy talks like he's Brutus or something in Caesar. Like he's also a classical actor that they've gotten for this movie, but he's got his space lizard suit on, and he basically says to Alex like, "Yes, I've always wanted to die in a space battle with the last starfighter." And he's like, "How many starfighters are left?" And he's like, "Well, there's just one. It's you." So he's literally the last. He's the last. It's the tie. It's Peter Griffin's watching the movie and stands up and goes and goes. and goes, "Oh, that's the title, right? Mr. President, we're going to have a clear and present danger." That's the title. And I don't dance. You remember that? It's good. Smell his sense of snow. So, so anyway, so what happens is they get in the Gundam wing or whatever that thing is, and they fly up there, and Alex learns how to pilot the. He's basically the top turret on the B-37 in space, and he's shooting his way through the Stargate, and he shoots something. They go into an asteroid, kind of like when the Millennium Falcon goes into with Princess Leia, and they go into the asteroid, right? And they're shooting. They got their masks on. They're predictive. And anyway, so they do that, and then okay. Long story long, they end up winning the battle. They destroy the bad guys. The bad guys mutiny, and they kill the bad guy with the donut head. Um, and um, and then they make it back to Earth, and now Alex is the hero. He gets back down to Earth. He's the hero. And then there's a long sequence at the end where like he's trying to tell his girlfriend, listen, this is what we always wanted. You gotta come on back up with me and we can live in space. So then they ascend and they go into space. And oh, and there's what I was gonna say, the reason that Lance Guest is good in this movie is because the beta version of him is also him acting, but he does a really good job of playing the robot character better than the human character. And that's actually it's a I would say that that's probably harder, but then again, it's probably harder to mimic the human being anyway. So so he's gotta be the space guy, and while the beta is back on Earth, there's a scene where he and his girlfriend get in the back of the Dodge truck with the homeboys and a couple of ladies, and they're doing what they do in the '80s and '90s, driving around town, right? What do you do for fun, Mr. Lebowski? Dude, right? Smoke a lot of Thai sticks, drive around, right? Speed of sound tour. So, yeah, they drive around and, they're driving around on the highway or whatever, and there's a scene where, Chad is on the other side of the truck bed, and he's telling some joke. He's got the ladies, to either side of him, and it cuts to them laughing. He's just told some funny joke, and they think that he's just so cool. Well, then, the girlfriend turns and she looks at Alex, Beta Alex, and she's like, "Why aren't you laughing?" And he does it's partly the makeup because they make his face up to be real white. Like, it literally, when you're looking at it, I thought this part was good. It does look like that he has a disembodied head, like his head doesn't belong on his body. Because there's a part where he can't hear, and he takes off his head, Wizard of Oz, Return to Oz style, puts it on a desk, and he fixes it, and then he puts it back on because he's a robot or whatever. Um, but the way they made it look like his neck is super long in this scene, and his head, like it's funny how the robot movements are basically bird movements, right? Because he's like when she says something to him, instead of turning and looking at her, he like turns real fast, and then he kind of moves his head like in bird movements because he's trying to get used to what it's like to be a human being. And then she says to him, "Why don't you laugh?" And he's like, "What, like this?" And he does this Stewie Griffin laugh. You remember when Stewie had a fake laugh? So he does a Stewie fake laugh, and everybody turns and looks at him, and they're like, "Dude, is this guy? What's wrong with this guy, man? This guy's got DID or something." And he does because it's Alex, but it's not Alex, right? So anyway, so he does a good job of that in the movie. But anyway, the movie ends, and he saved the world. So that's the last Starfighter. Man, that one took it out of me. That was a lot more complex than I thought. So, shouts out to everybody out there. Next, what do you guys wanna do next? What movie? We got Enemy Mine, um, Alien Nation, Flight of the Navigator, and Rakka. I guess I'll do one more, and then I'll do Rakka after that. Should I do I guess I'll talk about Alien Nation. I'll do Alien Nation now. So that's 1988, and again, I saw this movie. I've only seen it twice, once today and once in, like, 1989 on a small television set with 4 channels. And I was surprised actually at this movie because you guys wanna do Enemy Mine now? Well, I'm already in Alien Nation. I'll do Alien Nation, then I'll do Enemy Mine next, right? So everybody wants enemy mine. I should do that last, make y'all stay. So so this one stars the great James Caan, and James Caan is great because you remember the thing about James Caan. All right, so here's James Caan. So I'm James Caan, and I'm in profile right here, right? And if you say my name, my character's name, instead of turning like this, like a normal person does, James Caan always does this. Huh? He's got to turn his James Caan cannot turn his neck, right? He turns his full body. And also, I know that a few years ago, he was doing that interview with, I don't know, The Verge or somebody, and they asked him about they were talking about his classic movies, and in typical James Caan, they asked him, "What about Alien Nation?" And this is literally his response. They said, "What about Alien Nation? How was that to work on?" And he goes, "Why the fuck are you gonna ask me about that movie? Why are you gonna bring up that movie?" He was pissed. He was pissed they brought up that movie. And then he said, "I mean, look, I liked working with Mandy Patinkin. He was funny. He was a funny guy. He was a great guy. But there was this foreign director. He was British or something, and I just didn't care for the man. I can't do a James Caan. I don't know how he speaks, but that's his body movements. And but that is what he says in the interview. And you can tell it's a kooky idea or whatever for a movie, but it's just pretty original. But what's important about the movie is the predictive elements of the movie and the fake alien invasion, right? In this one, what happened? It's got Mandy Patinkin, by the way, who I told you. Remember, he was Saul in Homeland. Mandy Patinkin filmed the scene from Homeland at my parents' house. So they filmed it in where I live, and I think I told you before that they were walking by the location scouts, and they saw through the window, saw the library. They wanted to use that as the intel ladies' library, and then they whatever. Anyway, he so his green room was, his preparation room, his green room was my parents' room upstairs. They put my parents up at a five-star hotel for the week, and I mean, they were great. It was great. But anyway, so Mandy Patinkin plays the alien, and the aliens in it are called the newcomers. And, but he calls them, what's the slang for 'em? Slags or something like that, right? "Shut your mouth, slag." Right? They call them slags from Slag Town, something like that. Um, and so what's happened is this is pretty amazing. They include, as the kind of prologue to the movie, they include Reagan's speech, and they don't include the parts about Reagan. And remember, Reagan gave the speech about the one thing that would unite the world into one globalist world, right? Would be if there were an alien invasion, because we would all unite in the human spirit to fight the aliens. And that was when he was talking about SDI and Star Wars and all that, right? Which went on, obviously. And it's obviously got the globalist connections, um, the predictive programming for Event 2050. But what they do in the movie is they quote the Reagan speech where he says, "If not us, whom, if not now, when?" And they make that like he is like the aliens have landed. So the aliens land in the movie, and they are like refugees from their outer rim planet or whatever. And they need a place to live, so they come to Earth. And so this is one of the movies where the aliens are friendly, right? They come to Earth, and they integrate with human society. They assimilate, and so the beginning of the movie is basically James Caan is a cop, of course, driving around in a Buick or whatever, or he's driving around in like a Chevy Jabroni, and he's got his partner, and he says, "Look at all this. Look at all this mess, right? Look at these people. Over here, we got these aliens. Over here, we got these slags. Over here, they're gonna." And then they see a couple of slags, the newcomers, robbing a liquor store. So they go and stop the thing, but his partner gets killed, and James Caan is pissed. So he goes back to the police station. He's got his leather bomber jacket on and his turbo shades, and he volunteers for the next assignment, which is apparently I don't know what it has to do with, but his partner is one of the aliens, and that's Mandy Patinkin. And he finds out his partner's name is Officer Francisco. He's the first newcomer to become a detective. Now, obviously, the themes in this are supposed to be about assimilation in American society and also about like the about racial elements and people getting along, and that's like the surface level, right? Because it's like they're treating people like an other, but they're aliens, and that's supposed to be the big metaphor, right? But I think the deeper element in this is obviously that we are supposed to be united as humans. Uh, uh, and when the aliens get here, we're supposed to trust them, right? Is a short, brief, kind of probably too simplistic way of looking at it. And so he takes Francisco, and he says, "What's your first name?" And he says, "Sand." So all the aliens have been given names. This is supposed to be an Ellis Island, kind of reference where they run out of names and they give the alien they can't understand the alien language, so the alien other language, they're foreign, so they give them American names. Later on, they meet a guy, and his name is Rudyard Kipling. San Francisco is the guy, and he says, "I'm not gonna call you that. What am I gonna go and introduce? We're gonna be looking for evidence. I'm gonna introduce you as San Francisco. I can't do that. That's no way. I'm gonna call you George." So he calls him George, and George is Manny Patinkin is a real kind of happy-go-lucky officer, but he actually ends up taking, the lead in this sort of investigation, and so what it becomes about drugs, by the way. So they go and, they gotta investigate, like, who killed the guy, and they're looking for the bad guys or whatever, and they go to the morgue, and they go all these places, and he's communicating in his alien language, and he's like, "What'd you say? You gonna translate?" He won't translate. And then, they go to the swanky dinner hosted by the mayor of New York, right? And the mayor's up there and he's introducing Mr. Big Baller or whatever. And he's the fancy Monopoly guy, a rich guy in an opera uh black tie with a white, he's got that white scarf, in the 20 style. And he's played by Terrence Stamp. Terrence Stamp is the bad guy alien. He turns out to be, guess what? He is he's the foreigner, so he's the bad guy. I mean, he's the foreigner, so he's the alien, and he's the rich guy running the corporation, and he's in charge of all the business. But he's also in league with drug importation and drug trade. And the aliens have this weird drug trade. They go to a factory, and all the aliens are working the newcomers are working in the methane lab because it doesn't hurt their bodies or something like that. And turns out that they're in the methane lab because they're making a kind of meth or whatever. They're making some sort of soma opioid meth that's getting all the aliens addicted to it. And the bad guy, Terrence Stamp, Mr. Monopoly, is giving the aliens like chances to take part in this. They don't want to turn against their own people, so he eliminates them. One person that they go and investigate is Brian Bosworth, alien Brian Bosworth. You can tell it's Brian Bosworth right away when you watch it. In a biker bar, and so all the aliens have taken on all the like they have homeless aliens, they got crack aliens, they got mayors, detective. They're supposed to be they're totally assimilated into the rundown late 80s hellscape of New York or whatever it is. So anyway, so they go after it, they find the guy, and they eliminate him. But what just there's no moral of the story in this one, but I guess there kind of is in this because it's supposed to be moralistic. Because James Caan, obviously, at the end, he respects the alien, right, who is his partner, and he's like, "No, you're as much a human being as me," right? And the other cool thing about the movie is that James Caan has like this hand cannon. So this was another thing in the 80s where they would have like a 44 Magnum with a scope on it. And he takes them to the shooting range, and he puts a bulletproof vest on the target, sends it back, and he's like, "This is what I only chose you as my partner because I wanna help you I want you to help me to find this guy so I can kill all your kind," and he blows away the target, and everybody's looking at him, but he's got this scope. It reminded me of they did the same thing in, Tango and Cash. Remember Kurt Russell had one of those? So so that is, Alien Nation. So, important film in terms of, looking into somebody said about Bright, which has, Will Smith, and that's by the guy who did Training Day, right? And it's got what's his name, the great Australian actor that I like, the one that was in The Gift. Uh, that guy's pretty cool. What's his name? What's the name of the partner? Y'all, what's the name of the partner in Bright? He was in The Gift. He was in, Zero Dark 30. He was in, the Fighter movie with Tom Hardy. Remember he played the other brother and they fought each other in the octagon or whatever. I like that dude. He's pretty cool. Um, anyway, so that's Alien Nation. So what should we go on to next? Enemy Mine. You guys, if you want to support me, send some super chats my way or dono chat. Hit that dono chat. Or you can support me directly, which would really help. Um, Let's see. Shouts out to our friend Jason out there who sent $5 via PayPal. Also, shouts out to Jason because he sent $5 via PayPal before the David Patrick Harry stream last night. So thank you to Jason. You are the number one super chatter right now. Appreciate you, homeboy. Thank you so much. Also, Jason did some great artwork versions of some pencil and paper sketches, which were pretty good. The one of David Patrick Harry was good. The hand on the mic, that was good. Um, so shouts out to Jason. So yeah, yes, in Warrior, that movie Warrior. Uh, yes, I know Training Day is Denzel, but it's by the same. Is it Anton Fuqua? I think that's the director of Training Day, isn't it? And he did Bright. Um, so um, so what was the other one? Enemy Mine. So Enemy Mine is what is Enemy Mine? 1985 maybe? It's mid 80s, whatever it is. And Enemy Mine is it's actually a pretty decent film. Joel Edgerton, that's right. So Enemy Mine's pretty decent. It's Dennis Quaid. I saw one review of it and it was like Dennis Quaid is the Walmart version of Harrison Ford. Not really accurate. Dennis Quaid had his own thing going, and I don't think I mean, I can see that. I can see, I guess, why a person would say that, but they're not really in the same category. They're not really in the same sorts of films. And Dennis Quaid is a much more emotive, as actors would say, emotionalist actor. And I always liked Dennis Quaid because he was great in The Right Stuff, which is the space movie, and was written by what's his face that went to my school from that did Bonfire of the Vanities and Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, and what is it? Um, the book about Mau Mau's, and Flat Catching the Mau Mau's. What's the name of that book? It's got so many titles going around in my head. Um, but I like Dennis Quaid. I saw Interspace with my parents in 1987 when it came out. I thought that was the coolest movie. I thought that was so cool. In 1987. And yes, and he was in Dreamscape, which is a revelatory, DARPA movie. Um, but so in this one, and he's great as Jerry Lee Lewis, in Great Balls of Fire. So anyway, so in this one, Dennis Quaid is a pilot, like in The Right Stuff, and he is part of the Americans who are defending whatever it is out in space, and their enemy, are the aliens, and the aliens are these space lizards. And he's in a battle. His co-pilot gets killed. They get shot down on a space rock, on a kind of a Martian hellscape space rock with with all these volcanoes and meteor showers everywhere. And he dies, and then he sees that the enemy that he shot down is kind of over yonder. And so he goes to investigate and he looks down into this pit and he sees that in the pit is the alien demon who is like in a fire pit and he's got his spaceship, right? Tom Wolfe, thank you. Yeah, Thomas Wolfe is Look Homeward Angel. Tom Wolfe. Thank you for the name. Tom Wolfe went to my school. I've met him a bunch of times because he went to my private school and he was my seventh grade English teacher's babysitter when he was young. Um, yeah, Radical Chic and Mau Mauing the Flat Catchers, which is a good book. But anyway, so I'm gonna do a Tom Wolfe stream with our homeboy Digital Minefield, Real Cooter Brown. We're gonna do Bonfire of the Vanities. So I mean, I read the right stuff in seventh grade. Of course, it was seventh grade because it was my teacher. Shouts out to Mr. Bruner, who is a great influence on me. One of the a great man. He is a great man, and recently retired. Shouts out to Evan out there who sends $20 via PayPal. Thank you so much, homeboy. Really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And Tom Wolfe and my other English teacher, who is the poet laureate, is they're good friends. So anyway, but I only met him once, so whatever. But, so this is like a classic tale of the it's kinda like Grand Illusion in a way because we have the downed, gentlemen, chivalric sort of pilots who are enemies of one another, but what you find out is that they have to get along. So it's a classic tale. It's the 2 guys on the opposite side and they're fighting each other, but they have to put aside their differences in order to survive because of the landscape, and that's all they have. So what they do is they, fight one another, and then eventually the Deus ex machina happens because the meteor shower comes and, is gonna destroy everything and everyone. There's one point where Dennis Quaid also gets caught in uh, sand pit, and this, nasty, alien Al Crowley probe, with a phallic, probe tail millipede thing comes out of a weird hole in the desert scape, wraps around his leg, and is gonna take him down into the Rancor is gonna kill him or whatever. And, and he shouts out, and then, the alien comes and phaser blasters it and rescues him. So now he, like, is in debt to him because now he saved his life. Well, the alien in this is played by the space lizard is played by, Louis Gossett Jr., who's great. He's fantastic in this movie. And one of the things one of the reasons I mean, it's essentially just 2 actors really in the movie, and they are each one is my enemy, right? They are it's mine enemy. It's an enemy mine. But the enemy is mine. He's my enemy, but he's also mine. And they're on a mining planet. And Louis Gossett Jr., who's great, who's an Oscar winner and was great in Iron Eagle, by the way. He's great because we learn that well, first of all, he's got this space lizard mask on, and the makeup is kinda crude because it's just a rubber mask essentially with, like, these kinda gill things on his sides, and he clearly could when he probably was going for the part, he could do that weird thing, that weird tongue thing, that weird Chewbacca sound, and, they were like, "That's great, you're gonna do that for the movie." So that's what he does, that's how he talks. But it's great because you, one of the things is in the movie that you really feel for this character, and you feel for that even though one's a human and one's a space lizard, that there's some sort of bond of life between them where they're both just trying to do what's right to each his own, right? And survive, as Robert Downey Jr. says. The real reason he's great is because we learn that when Dennis Quaid grows a beard and becomes Moses in the movie, and he puts on this, and he goes and he wanders out, and he goes out in the desert, and he's looking for the promised land. He's trying to get rescued, and he's got his staff. He comes back, and we find out the reason that Louis Gossett Jr. Space Lizard did not go with him was because he's preggers. So of course, the alien, is, um he's not a he him. He's not a she, and he actually says that in the movie. He's not a he, he's not a she, he's a they. He says that in the movie because he's preggers. And then we learn that the aliens don't get preggers like the humans do because Dennis Quaid says, "You're pregnant? Well, don't look at me, pal. It wasn't me." Well, they actually self birth or whatever. It's part of their life cycle. So the real reason Louis Gossett Jr. is great acting in the movie is because he goes from the alpha pilot to being the pregnant space lizardess who gives birth. And when he's doing that, he like it's crazy like how he did accomplish this because he starts sewing like the baby booties for the baby alien and singing these songs and stuff. And also he wears a demon space Bible on his neck, and he like goes up and he prays. And now this is obviously supposed to be ISLAM because he goes up onto the mountaintop and he like prays, a certain number of times a day, and he's looking at the Orion sun or whatever up there. So it's supposed to be how like it's in the 80s and how we have two civilizations alien to one another that are supposed to somehow coexist. And it's like there are crusader elements in this. And eventually Dennis Quaid like learns his language and um and then uh they save each other constantly throughout the thing. There are storms, and then finally he gives birth and to zombies, and Louis Gossett Jr. dies. And it's like I think that's one of the like amazing things about the movie because great works of art have an ability um to appeal to your sense of emotion and your sense of care, which you get kind of trapped into because you forget that he's fighting these alien demons, right? These space lizards. But the point of the movie is kind of like it's kind of ambiguous because it's like, are we supposed to? Is this a world in the future? This is obviously a world in the future where this actually happens where they have this big argument about like they're both colonizing space, and they both argue about who's the explorer and who's the evil colonist, and they both end up being that way in the movie. But then what happens is like the child is born, he has to take care of the child, and now he's the uncle, and he becomes a surrogate father figure who knows their language. Now he's going to become important later on because um, when he gets rescued, which I'm kind of skipping, but when he gets rescued later on, the MIC is gonna figure out that this is like the only guy who knows the space lizard language. So he's important to them. But he decides to bypass that and care about what's important to him. So the little kid alien gets trapped by the mountain men miners who are of course now the bad guys, who are the humans who are running the mine, and they want to kill zombies, okay, the little little lizard. And Dennis Hopper, Dennis Hopper can't tell the difference between real life and the movies, man. Dennis Quaid um kills one of the bad guys, and then takes a bullet or a phaser bullet or whatever for the little lizard, and he also gets captured by them, and then they take him off somewhere. But in the meantime, Dennis Quaid is like out of it, and they think he's dead, and but then he gets rescued by the humans, and he goes up to human Death Star planet or whatever. And he's in kind of a Star Trek uh like alleyway, and and they're gonna take his necklace, but his necklace is like made of space titanium or whatever. They can't take it. And he reaches up his hand and he's come back to life. So he has died, descended, and then he has ascended, and now he's alive again. See? And he has sacrificed himself for the little lizard. um, so there are supposed to be obvious religious connotations to the movie. Um, he, uh, they try to give him honors and everything, and he's gonna tell him about what the space lizards are like or whatever. But he decides to say, "No, screw all that," and he goes after zombies to try and find him. He finds him in the Hell Planet, in a cage. He's locked in a cage in Death World. And but then what happens is when he rescues him, all the space lizards know of the legend of him as the uncle from the other world who has come to rescue them, and they come out of slavery, and they rise up and take over the humans. Now, so you get why this is a difficult one to do, because it's like we see the obvious like Exodus elements and biblical elements of the movie, but it's also you're meant to forget that the humans are actually the good guys. They don't act so good in the movie, but the humans are the good guys trying to fend off the space lizard invasion. So the end of the movie is like he unites with this kid, and like they live happily ever after. And then we have kind of a Star Wars, ceremony where he's honored or whatever, and they all live in peace. So it's very Alien Nation Reagan. But again, one of the things it's doing is like seeding into the mind of the viewer and the public that this is we should get used to this kind of story because this is going to happen sometime. So on the surface, it's just a movie about how people get along and all that stuff, but it's really well done because the moral problems in it become an issue. Um, so um, so what's another one to do? Rakka. So Rakka Rakka is a movie by I hope y'all are enjoying this. I mean, we're just doing this for fun. I'm not doing like a it's not meant to be like a serious analysis of these movies. I mean, I think there are serious things to be gleaned from it, but we're just talking about, there are serious elements and things that are relevant now and will be relevant, in the future from what we've read. And I think that's important. But we're just doing this kind of for fun because it's what is this, a weekday night? Is this Monday? So I got one more week of spring break left. So that's why we're doing it. And I got my AJ Space Force shirt on. So shouts out to everybody out there. Um, so Rakka again is part of this Blomkamp series on Netflix. Neill Blomkamp is good. I mean, I think he's a good filmmaker because again, the same thing happens in the movie District 9. In District 9, you feel when I watched District 9, I felt so bad for the alien because the praying mantis alien robot is trying to rescue his son in the movie, and you feel so bad for him. But that's kind of that's the insidious nature of this is that no, these are the alien demons, right? You're not feeling bad for them. This is I mean, it's a fake alien invasion anyway. But if the aliens come, then they're demons, and the robo demons are no different. So you kind of have to get over that. And it's this series called Oats Studios, which is a bizarre. I've been trying to figure out what Oats stands for. What's the reference to? I can't find it because you can't find anything on the internet anymore. But it's a series of like 10 films, which is kind of it's obviously a Black Mirror type of series. But I will say that one of them is really good. It's episode 2, I think, of the series, and it's called Firebase, because that one is explicitly Phoenix program. In that one, I won't go through the whole thing. I mean, it's only a 25 or 30-minute short movie that they tried to crowdfund to film a full release. But it's called Firebase, and basically it takes place in Vietnam, and Mac V. Sog, um, the Studies Observations Group, and Special Forces with a Phoenix program emblem are wearing their tiger stripe uniforms and are in the jungle. And they're fighting Charlie. And basically, one guy who's been burned talks about how the villagers and of course the special forces keep seeing during a battle, like, a guy gets shot and his blood, like, ascends, and all of the military equipment ascends up into the atmosphere, and it's because there is a kind of, vampire demon who is stalking the jungles, searching to be is trying to be death incarnate. And the guy says he was the devil. He saw the devil. Now this is a science fiction story, but it's taken from Phoenix Program clearly because remember Lansdale and the remember in Doug Valentine's Phoenix Program book they talk about Lansdale and the playing on the sympathies of the Vietnamese and their superstitions about the vampires. So they would seals or whoever would or lerps would wait on a trail, snatch the last guy, puncture him right here, drain his blood, hang him upside down, and put a death card on him that said, a vampire had taken him. And then um, they are doing awful things, Stockwell style, to the prisoners in the background. There's a CIA guy that shows up, and when he talks to the American who's been burned and saw this, he says this guy's going to go home and he's going to be enrolled in Operation in MK Search. He name drops it in the thing, so it's pretty well done. All right, so that's beside the point. The first one is called Rakka. Um, all I know is that Rakka. I looked it up, and Rakka. I know that it means fallen or fallen one in Japanese. And so. Uh, basically, there's a long voiceover, and what we see is that in the post-apocalyptic dystopian future, the alien demons have arrived, and they are, this is not DARPA style alien, with Starlink. This is alien demons have arrived in their interdimensional craft, and the black goo is everywhere in this. The black goo takes over all the cities. They burn all of the landscape. They kill all the animals, and there are only a few, survivors left. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance, right? So it's Terminator Salvation style, and they're led by Sigourney Weaver, and there's an arsonist. The arsonist is this dude who, of course, was a villain in the previous world, but now because of his special set of skills, he has made a brainwave resistant helmet because the aliens who are lizard people, who are space lizards, they have a space they're demons, but they have a space lizard um Draco the dragon helmet shield, and they communicate through telepathy, and they can influence the way that humans act and what they do, and they make them all slaves. And they take over their psyche. So it's up to the arsonist to make this helmet. Eventually, they see the Rakka. They see the guys fall down, and they're the ferro fluid, which was invented by NASA. Ferro fluid is used in like it's like electromagnetic. It's used in like NASA devices and speakers and all. I don't know all kinds of stuff. But they um they they catch one of the guys. They blow him up in a SUI style attack, and they cut off his head, and that's the end of the short film. So, but why you should watch the film is because it's it's Gersh says Raka also means moon. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. It's spelled Rakka. Doesn't make a difference. I'm sure it's phonetic. But, their spaceship, I guess, is like a lunar module, and they're, like, from the dark side of the moon, and they're, lunar because they're the opposite of the light of they blot out the sun with their black goo and their spacecraft. But another interesting element, the reason why you should watch it is because they're, they see, um was that in Raqqa? They see I think it was in that, yeah, they see the great white way, the watchers, right? The interdimensional um Blavatsky watchers are these um white alien beings who are supersede the Raka beings and who are watching from space, and they are looking out for the humans, of course. So it's another instance of The aliens wanna come, and they're gonna destroy the planet. They're gonna It's interplanetary war. They're gonna destroy the planet and use us as batteries, in these hell caves. And, of course, there are the panspermic Blavatsky Watchers, interdimensional beings who are outside of that who are going to save us. So, yeah, so you should watch, uh, Oat Studios, Neill Blomkamp, Rakka on Netflix. So, the last one I'll do is, not Space Lizards, but it is fake alien invasion, and that is the movie Flight of the Navigator. Now, Flight of the Navigator is, 1986. It takes place in 1986. It starts off in Fort Lauderdale, so there's NASA elements. Um, that plays a big role in the movie. Obviously, NASA had sponsored the movie because there's NASA emblems everywhere, and they use these facilities and whatever. So they, I'm sure, had input in the movie, and it takes place in 1978 at the beginning. And the first thing you see in the movie is a what looks like a flying saucer, but instead it's a frisbee. And so they're doing a frisbee competition, and they're trying to, they're at like a dog fetching frisbee competition. And the little kid and his little brother are like, "Yeah, we're gonna get our blue-eyed Merle to be the best frisbee dog." Well, there's a scene while they're doing that where they see a big black cloud fly over them, and it's weird because everybody looks up, and it's like you're looking at models of people, but they're real people, but they all stand still like they've been frozen in time, and that will play a theme in the movie. And they look up, and then when they look up, they see it's a blimp that's flying low, casting a shadow over them. But the shape of the blimp itself is going to mimic the spaceship that shows up. And actually, the spaceship that's gonna show up, is, like one of those spiral Nerf footballs, and spirals will play a role in this, which is hard to, can't we gotta kinda dance around that term, when we talk about this, because that's gonna play a role in this. It's a dark film. But it's also obviously the spaceship that takes the boy away is supposed to also mimic a brain, and so the Drino elements will play a role in this. So what happens is the boy fights with his little brother. His little brother, like, is real annoying, and the dad thinks it's his fault instead of little brother or whatever. And he goes off to play with his friends. Little boy goes out and he falls down a ravine, and he hits his head, and he wakes up, and it's dark. And then when he goes back home, this was scary when I saw it, when I was little. And he goes back home, and his parents aren't at home. It's these new people living in his house. And he says, "Where's my mom and dad?" And they're like, "We don't know. We don't know where they are." They take him to the police station or whatever. They find that he's been missing, for 8 years. And then they reunite him with his parents, and his parents are like, "Where have you been? Like, we're so glad you're back, but where have you been?" They've been looking for him for 8 years. Well, he says, "What do you mean 8 years? It's been like 20 minutes." So, so the way that the story works is, on the surface, the boy fell, he gets up, he goes back, he's reunited. His parents enroll him in they take him to a psychiatrist, of course. They take him to Ewan Cameron, who's actually the guy who plays the scientist is that guy from that, remember that show from the '70s, like WKRP Cincinnati, something like that? And he was that guy with the glasses, and that guy was like Janis Joplin's boyfriend. He's this boomer guy who's friends. He was Janis Joplin's boyfriend or whatever. That show, I always hated when that show would come on after something I was watching. I was like, "What is this?" Back in the '80s, and I'll turn it off. So anyway, they take him to a psychiatrist. He hooks him up to some brain waves to see if he's had any kind of head trauma. And when they do that, they hook him up to these monitors, and the monitors start flashing all of these images of like mathematics and then star charts. And so the NASA guy gets contacted, and he's like, "We need to talk to this kid because there's something going on here." So then, they take him, and he's gonna get looked at or whatever. He's gonna be monitored in the facility. He's got a two-way mirror, and, they give him I always thought that the NASA hat they gave him was, I don't know why I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool that they gave him a hat, and there's, like, toys that they give him, even though he's supposed to be 12 in the movie. And then, of course, there's an '80s robot. So the robot is the lunch robot, and that comes in and it's like lunch, mail, it's the mail bot. And and then Sarah Jessica Parker shows up and she's like the older teenager and she's like, I'm gonna take care of you. And when I was a kid, I thought this was awesome that she's like, "Oh, you're," she thinks he's kinda cute, and I thought that was cool because I was like, "Oh, this, this older girl or whatever." And now when you go back and watch it, it's crazy. It's really dark. Not that part in particular, but what the movie's about. So he escapes in the mailbot because he's hearing things, and he's hearing something call to him. So he escapes in the mailbot, he goes to the facility, and he sees the floating spaceship, which is this, silver floating spaceship that looks like a brain, and it lowers some steps. When the steps come down, because it's like it's like seamless, and when it lowers the steps and he goes up into the spaceship, it looks like a it's weird. It's like a holographic coon pod, and there's a Luminate Confirm I robot that comes out and, like, speaks to him and tells him that he's the navigator, but the you gotta I'm not I don't know how much I can describe the emblem that's on the steps, but it is a notorious sick emblem that pops down. So I don't really wanna get into this too much because you can do your own thing, but the emblem on it is really weird, and he takes the emblem stairs up into the brain. You see what I'm saying? Um, and then they find out he's missing. He takes off in the ship. He flies around the world. The voice that talks to him in the spaceship is Pee Wee Herman, and it's weird because it it starts off. I know that Paul Rubens did the movie like under a stage name, and I don't. I guess because they wanted to disavow what he does in the movie because he becomes Pee Wee Herman. They didn't want to be later a Pee Wee Herman movie. Which is weird because I don't think Pee Wee Herman was out at that. When did the first Pee Wee Herman movie come out? 19 I think that was 1984. So I guess it had come out because his Big Adventure came out. I don't know when that came out. It was sometime in the 80s. And Tim Burton and all that. And but when you're watching it when you're a kid, you're like, "Oh, this is so cool," because he like he's like, "Play some music," and he plays some music and it's terrible. And the guy, the robot can scan all of the various um radio waves all over the place, and then they, like, play the Beach Boys, and when I was a kid, I thought that was really cool because he's playing I Get Around, um, not Tupac, it's the Beach Boys version, but now when you watch it, you're like, they put this boomer music on, and it's also I Get Around because he's flying all around the world, but there's also another weird element to that. Um, there's also a scene I'm not gonna describe the other scene where he gets out and there's the cows and he gets out and he's like, "What are you doing?" And that's another weird scene. Um, but basically, NASA is tracking him a fly around the world. The spiral um, spaceship uh, PIN thing gland becomes like a bullet thing and flies around the world. And then he comes back and then he's reunited with his family. Now, when he saw his family, also, it's weird because his little brother becomes his big brother, and his big brother now recognizes him. But the reason it's weird is because um, you know, this is clearly a movie about Drino elements, psychic connections, MK Naomi, MK Often, um, power things with spirals that I don't really want to get into, and it's weird that they're using the actor that they do. But take all that away, and you watch it when you're a kid, and you're like, this movie's really cool because like he can fly around the world. It's really awesome. Um, so I know everybody here knows what I'm talking about. So, but it's one of those key movies in that whole thing, which is weird. And just when you go back and watch it when you're, now you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? But it was my like favorite movie when I was a kid. I taped it on VCR, um, off of the Disney night or whatever when I was a kid. I had a tape of it and I would watch it all the time. I thought it was so cool. Because you can fly, right? How cool is that? But that it takes on a completely different element when you watch it. But there's nothing really about space lizards in it other than that he opens up a pod and the ship has taken all of these things from other dimensions and other planets, and one of them is like a space lizard, and then there's another Illuminate confirm eye that pops out and looks at him, and that's really weird. Um, so yes, so basically, the movie is about a kid who wanders off, has a head trauma, dissociates, um, then is put into a facility, a Ewan Cameron facility, where they mine his psychic connections and abilities to form a Stargate, and then they harvest Drino, and where they are supposed to use that for their pyramid structure and ascend into their demon worlds. And that's but other than that, it's a it's whatever. So man, I kind of wish I hadn't have watched that. Now or even just here because it doesn't even play in the Space Lizards, but I guess it does because the Star Lizards are the tie into this because 'cause they're the people doing this, right? So so anyway, let's see if there's any super ch thanks for bearing with me on all that, y'all. I'm not really the one to do all that. So, yeah, shouts out to the real Adam Freeland who sends $5 and says, "If you know what, in my yeah, okay. I'm you know what, and yes. Yeah. Yo, if you are if you are the real Adam Freeland, and I love the video that you and Nick did with back with Stav when you did the Joker. Mm, oh, how's the song go? Oh, check it out. It's the Joker when they were doing the Joker song. Um, so shouts out to the real Adam Freeland. You guys, the real Adam Freeland show. The Adam Freeland show with Nick Mullen. Nick Mullen's the greatest living comedian. Shane Gillis, Nick Mullen, Theo Vaughn, and Riff Raff. Love Riff Raff. I ain't giving up my truck. I ain't giving up my truck. Yeah, yeah, so thank you, real Adam Freeland. I appreciate the $5 there. And yeah, they did a good AI chat GPT Trump call in on their on their latest episode, talking to the real Adam Freeland. Listen, I'm not gonna do my Trump because it's I don't know. I did it this weekend for a friend, and he said that's not very good. That's not, and I was like, I know. No, it's not very good. Oh, also, yeah, so that thank you, real Adam Freeland, who sends the $5 on the dono chat. And yeah, and also, yeah, I put up that in the community tab because I had a uh spoof schizo spam bot who was replying to people, and to shouts out to Jerry at Exposing Powerful Lies, who I woke up in the morning and he was like, "Yeah, I saw this. You might want to go back and look." So I looked, and first of all, y the replies, it's like, look, the replies that I do on YouTube are like one word or maybe a sentence, right? They're not paragraphs full of 1,500 words, obviously. And also with like links well, you need to send it here and then you'll be just everything about that, right? So those are all gone. But it's amazing because I had to go back and delete each, and block each one individually. So it was a whole VIRAL bot. And we've seen that happen to our friends. I mean, I'm just a small channel, but we've seen that happen to our friends, happen to DPH and JD, and it just that's the internet, so that happens. Um, also, somebody didn't like the way that I say Don DeLeo, and they were real mad about it. Well, whatever. Guess what? That's the way that I say it. I even said in the videos multiple times, and I've done many videos on that I say Don DeLeo that way because I choose to, and that's how the fuck I want to say it. So if you don't like it, I'm not sorry, but you can get mad about it like a little bitch. But yeah, so that was a weird comment. But I'm gonna keep doing Don DeLeo streams, and Cormac McCarthy. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate all the people. Uh that are liking the stream, sharing the streams. Let's um see if I got any super chats here. Woke up to some spicy things the other day. That spam bot, that spoof bot was pretty crazy. Let's see. So if you want to support me, yes, you can like the stream, share the stream. I'd really appreciate it. Follow me on Insta. Yo, shouts out to Gargana Q who sends 10 euros, no comment. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Again, thanks to Jason who sent $5 and then $5 again last time. Shouts out again to Real Adam Freeland for that $5. And shouts out again to Evan on PayPal. Let me check one more time over here just to make sure. Oh yeah, there we go. Yo, shouts out. Yes, shouts out to Evan for that $20 on PayPal. Really appreciate you. And so thank you so much. Really appreciate y'all for being here. I will be back soon. I'm not sure when I'll be doing I got a bunch of books lined up. Toledo says, I always hated how Sarah was so mean to her baby brother. Are you talking about Sarah Jessica Parker? Next stop, Hollywood. Oh, there was this dude in town when I was a kid, who he was this weird guy who like hung around a sub shop. And he one day somebody this is in the 90s, and then one day somebody said, yeah, that's Sarah Jessica Parker's brother. And I was like, who? Um, and then I learned who that was because she was in, movies and and stuff like that. Because I knew her from Flight of the Navigator, but I didn't recognize her name at that point. She wasn't that famous. And then I remember one time at least I think he was Sarah Jessica Parker's little brother. She's got like 5 brothers. So what that dude was doing in town, that was really weird. I don't know. Um, but anyway, yes, go back and check out if I would recommend one movie from this, um it would be Enemy Mine. I think Enemy Mine is the best of these movies. I think that The Last Starfighter is good. You were talking about Labyrinth, Toledo. Oh, yeah, love Labyrinth. Um, Turn back, Sarah. Throw him in the oubliette. The best line in that movie, by the way, uh, the other day, I hope I'm not doxing Jeff by saying this, but Jethro the other day said, we agreed that we hate it when people say, "Welp," WELP. We hate, like that's an annoying thing that and it's whatever. It's fine, if you write that in comment, whatever. But it can be annoying because it's whatever. But I immediately thought of that. There's a part in Labyrinth where do you remember where Sarah is going on her little journey and she says into the labyrinth, into her mind labyrinth, because she also dissociates in the movie. And she says, well, come on, feet. She tells her feet to start walking. Uh, Also, that movie has one of the best songs in it of all time, which is um, "When the World Falls Down." That's a great song. It's a great David Bowie song, right? I'd stop the world for you. It's a great song. But yes, it's an Alice in Wonderland-esque, Wizard of Oz story where she dissociates and has to make her way through the mind labyrinth. Um, and great classic movie. In fact, go back to JD and watch Jay's uh, analyses of Labyrinth. Those are probably the best analysis you're going to watch of Labyrinth with Jennifer Connelly. So anyway, that's about all I got, you guys. Thank you again for being here for this. I feel like we covered a lot, even though it was kind of short. And it was saying whelp is one of those things. It's fine. It's like one of those things that, like in Northern Ireland, there's an expression where people say "ach." They say "ach like I didn't know," right? So it's just one of those expressions. But it was specifically related to like something on Twitter or something like that. I don't have a Twitter anymore. I got rid of it. But but I thought of Jennifer Con. I don't even know if she says that in Labyrinth, but it sounds like it. And again, shouts out to the real Adam Freeland because I was just talking to a friend this weekend about when on Seatown when they were talking about Robert Duvall in the movie Days of Thunder, and he says told this story to my friend. He got mad. He said, "They don't he doesn't say that in the movie." I was like, "I know, it's a joke." But he says, you know, Cole Trickle, you one of these city boy drivers. You know, you the trick to drive in NASCAR is you gotta drive around the track slow." I remember when I was a kid, when I was a kid and somebody had the Velcro shoes and he would take the Velcro off real slow. You hear the little Velcro teeth one at a time. He took the shoes off slow. That's the way you got to drive around the track. You got to drive around the track slow. So anyway, all right, you guys. Thank you all. I'll be back sometime this week. I got a bunch of stuff to cover. Again, more Cormac McCarthy. Oh, I got to cover The Confidence Man with by Herman Melville. So uh if you want to see me if you want to see me on for instance on JD's channel, put that in the comments. Let JD know that you want to see me do The Confidence Man or Edgar Allan Poe or whatever, any kind of literature or any other channels. Help me get out there. I'm trying to get up to 2K subs. I'm trying to get up to I'm almost at 100,000 views. It's been pretty good. It's thanks to you all out there. So thank you so much. Really appreciate y'all. That's about all I got. Hope you have a good night and a good week. All right. Peace. Love y'all. Peace.